Yeah, we are live. Welcome in, everybody. This is the new Round with Painting Table podcast with myself, MiniMatties, and today we've got a new guest, the Dueling Brushmen. So
Hello.
we've been talking about doing something like this for a while, and been talking away with Matties for probably about 2 months now, trying to sort something.
Roughly, yeah.
But
Been a
we've
while.
been like ships in the night, really, with it, and just Matty's been quite ill, haven't you? I've been renovating the house. We've got a baby on the way, so it's all a bit go. So I thought, well, Julian's been jumping into Twitch, and he's planning on getting into Twitch as well. So we'll talk a bit about that. But this podcast is going to be about display painting, learning to display paint. For myself, I've not entered into any competitions just yet. I'm planning to do the scale model challenge this year, and maybe another one, we'll see. But I think if I set myself to do one with maybe 2 entries, if I can, then that's a win. And like that can set me up, and hopefully next year I'll try and enter more. But both of these two people are veterans in the competition space. Matties is definitely, we've got pictures of a couple there, and Dueling Brushman's been on the scene for a while, and you've done a couple of competitions yourself, mate. So I'm excited for this. So yeah. So just quickly introduce yourselves. You want to start with MiniMatties?
Yeah, sure. Well, for the people on Twitch, mostly they will probably know me as MiniMatties. I'm a streamer here myself. Been streaming for nearly 4 years actually now. Started during COVID, and that was actually for me the reason of like, cool, like I'm good enough with my like GW paint style, like the base coat, wash dry brush style. I know how to place a couple of highlights as well, but that's basically where my painting stage is at this point. And I wanted to push my skills a bit further.
Yeah.
Wanted to learn new techniques, wanted to learn non-metallic metals, all the cool and fancy stuff you hear everyone about. So yeah, that's where my real painting journey started. And I found out that or for me at least, it's the case, if I spend more time on a model, on a project, and really like pour all my effort into it, I enjoy the painting process also way more. And yeah, from there on out, I just went like, cool, then why not enter it in a competition at some point and see how it will do.
Just try your hand and see what happens, basically.
Yeah.
That's the start of your journey. Right. But you've been painting a bit before then, like you just said.
Yeah, like I said, I started painting when I think I painted my first model when I was 11, so that's been too long ago by now. I think 22 years nearly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been painting for quite some time, but like I said, up to 4 years ago, it was just the standard tabletop quality style for most of the time. But yeah, COVID gave me lots of free time all of a sudden, so I decided why not push the skills a bit.
Let's try it. Well, we'll be diving into that a little bit more as well as we go. So our guest today, we've got Julien Brushmen, aka Julien Mindel, is your correct name?
Yeah, that's my correct name. Hi everyone. I'm French, as you can probably guess by my accent. And you can call me Julien, like Dueling Brushmen. That's the name of the channel and the Instagram page, but that's not the way people don't call me that. So it's Julien. And I've been painting. It's hard to tell because basically I've been painting since I'm a kid, since I'm around 10 maybe. But then seriously painting, like making it to be my my job, because that's my daily job and that's my daily income. That's been the case for maybe 5 years now.
Right, okay.
And yeah, 5 years. And it actually followed a kind of pause I did. As I said, I started painting with Warhammer Battle, as basically everyone, I guess, when I was like 10. And then when I entered what you'd call college in England, or is it like after high school?
Yeah, college, yeah.
Whatever, university. Well, when I entered that, I stopped painting a bit for many reasons. And I had a pause when I just basically didn't paint anymore. And then after that, I started painting seriously. First, I had the intention of just getting good, like getting actually good, and doing competition. the part when I started to want making it my job, that came after. But the competition part came at the moment I decided to get good. It happened just as you said, Maddie. There's just one day, and you say, "Well, I've been painting a lot. I've been improving, and people have been telling me I should start and try myself at competition." And there's just this day when you wake up and you say, "Well, next competition, I'm gonna be in."
Yeah.
And I don't know if I will win, and I probably won't, but I don't care because that's the goal I'm setting myself. So it started like that.
So no like expectations, just going at it and seeing what happens.
Yeah, just enter and have fun, enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I'll be lying if I say no expectation at all, because there's always that. Even your first competition, you see all the pieces, all the entries, and you see the level, which is insane, and you know it's not your level, but you always got that part of you saying maybe I don't know some mistake, and I end up winning something. So there's always that expectation, and then it doesn't happen because it doesn't happen on the first time usually. And then that's like that. It's a thrill to won and to want to win something. So it started like that. It's a thrill. There's a bit of frustration, but healthy frustration. And then you get into it, and when you start being a pro. And a pro, I mean, just like the fact that I'm making a living out of it. So when you start being a pro, you start seeing these competition as both a way of meeting people, colleagues that you don't often see, also potential clients, but also you see it as a way of painting for yourself, which is something that you do less when I'm a pro. I'm painting less for myself and more for the client. That's what being a pro is about. So competition, it's always a bit of work because you meet people there, but it's mainly a way of painting for myself and enjoying myself. And just as you say, Maddie, putting time into it and setting myself to be like, this mini is going to be the very best I can do right now at that point in my life, which is something you don't often do with commission. Of course, you do the commission and you do your best, but it's a commission. You can't put in thousands and thousands of hours of work.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that actually, because I do a bit of commission painting myself, and I know it's a different way of doing it, but the way I seem to do it, and it seems to have organically grown, has been I set a budget with the client, and the larger the budget, the more time is spent, but with an outcome that's kind of expected. So the trouble is, I know we won't go too much down into commission painting and trying to gauge how much to quote people, etc. But you're always working to that budget, and therefore you've got a time limit because you don't really want to be working for less than minimum wage. Otherwise, you might as well just be working at McDonald's. So,
oh,
exactly.
That's enjoyable, probably. But
yeah,
you know,
yeah, exactly that.
You have to work hard.
Without getting into the particulars, of course, you've got a budget and a time constraint, and you do your best in that time constraint.
That's
it. For example, even my the quickest competition entries I've done, like the one I've spent less time on, it's still 2 weeks.
Right.
2 weeks I spent just on that. So if someone were to commission me for that, well, okay, then you're paying me 2 weeks of work. That's half a month, half a salary.
They say, I want that. And you're not going to sell that model.
Yes, I don't know. Well, and it can happen, like everything can happen, but you never, or almost never, when you do commission paint, you almost never find someone who tells you do your absolute best, because then you have to charge him for that, and the price is like tremendous.
How long is a piece of string?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm getting there, yes, because what I wanted to say is competition pace is exactly that. You don't have to think about the time because it's your time and you're doing that on your off time. And painting you do on your off time is not the same you do on your work time. And so this is why competition is still important for me now.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective because, like, yourself being the commission painter who's doing competitions, and Matties who's been doing competitions. I think you have done a cheeky commission here and there, haven't you, Matties?
I've done a couple of commissions in the past.
You've done a cheeky couple too, yeah.
But
generally,
for me, it's an extra form of income as a hobby, and I don't want to make it my job. I'm not sure if I could, but that's that's not even the question. I just simply don't want to make it my job, simply out of the fear that I would lose my passion for it.
Yeah.
Which I think if you only have to do commissions, and obviously you need to do what the client is asking all of the time, there is a chance that you will lose the passion for what you're actually doing in the art.
Yeah.
And just simplify that fear, I don't want to make it my job. So yeah, I'll sometimes do commissions, but mostly I can just focus on my own stuff, focus on my own paint jobs, on my own models, and mostly focus on competition entries. Yeah.
So with that in mind, like, one of the things I wanted to ask you both, as somebody who wants to get into competitions, is I'm struggling to visualize where to take the model to. So, like, when I approach a commission piece, I kind of, like you say, I have that time budget and I'm like, right, I want to get it to look, to this standard. Let's say I do my gold tier, like, which is one of the higher tiers that I do. I want to have it completed. Everything's got nice highlighting. Generally you want it to look quite stunning from a distance as well as up close. But when I go into a competition piece, I'm trying to think, like, where's the end point? Because you can put more and more and more time in, right? And I'm like,
the real answer: there is no end point.
No, there's several.
There's no end point.
Yeah.
No, there's several answers.
Right.
But maybe you want to start, Matt.
Yeah, sure. So when I'm doing a competition piece, I'm literally, like Julien said before as well, giving it my all. So I'm painting a model up to the point that I can look at it and I have no clue what else I could improve on this.
Right.
Ask feedback from other painters as well, because obviously, like, we're in a community here on Twitch especially, there's lots of people that are really, really, really good at painting.
Yeah.
Ask feedback from them. They can probably help you out maybe with a few tips, because at some point, if you looked at the same model for like 50 hours, you don't see the mistakes anymore. That's definitely happening too. So they can maybe help you out seeing some stuff that you've overlooked. You can go back to the model, change that up, improve the model even further. And then from there on out, at some point, you just have to say, like, cool, I'm happy with where this is right now. I'm really proud of this, and I'll see how it will do during the competition.
That's mega. Well,
that's like
that answers the question for sure. How do you approach it, Julien?
Well, first, to answer the previous question, to add something to what Matt said, basically everything he said, but also there's that knowledge. The more and more you paint for competition, the more and more you become self-aware of what you're capable of doing, what you will struggle to do, but eventually will be able to, and what's yet still, like, out of your league. And that knowledge, that self-awareness helps you set the goal, the end goal that you spoke about, but that comes with painting more and more. I just wanted to add that.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
And how do I prepare? What first thing is, I've got many minis that I know I want to paint for a competition. I've got a backlog. I've got more minis that I will be able to paint during my whole life, and that would be true even if I wasn't doing competition. So what I do is,
I feel that.
Yeah.
yes, it's not a pile of shame, it's a room of shame. Okay, don't judge me.
Yeah, I think we're all sat in one. I think as we're inherently hoarders, as like gamers and painters,
Yes.
aren't we?
Yes, I'm getting paid now to be a hoarder.
That's
So
it.
what I do is when I say like I want to do a new competition piece, I've got time to do that now. I will take like I don't know a month, 2 months of like a pause in my work. I want to do a competition piece, so you've got to have that piece. If you do have it, like I do, because I'm a hoarder, you just select the one that speaks to you now. It's basically a matter of what do you want to paint now, because you have to want to paint it.
Yeah.
Because what you said, Matt, about losing passion, for me, it's not quite true. I'm still doing it for my work, my daily work, and I still love it. But there are minis that I enjoy painting less. It's not, I don't lose the overall passion, but I lose interest for that mini in particular. So when you're doing a competition piece, you want to avoid that.
Yeah.
You're going to be staring at the same mini for a long time. So you got to be sure you won't get bored. So look into whatever inspires you. Look into drawings, paintings, like mini paintings, but also 2D paintings, Canva paintings, illustrators, movie, whatever. The most popular brand is Games Workshop, of course, but there are many manufacturers, and there's basically every fiction universe or historical period got a mini for that. So really get into it. What do I want to paint? And then when you set up on the subject, again, look for inspiration, but particularly focus on that subject. Search for an ambience. What story do you want to tell? It's a competition piece, so it has to tell a story.
Okay.
It can be a very simple story, but elements on the base or the lightning or the position of the character, a small story. So what do you want that story? And then you're painting, you're going to build it from there. And you notice I'm thinking, I'm sorry, I've got trouble. English is not my first language. So
All good, man.
all I'm saying is, even before you touch a paintbrush, basically for me, half of the work is before. So maybe I'm a bit of an overthinker, and I know I am. So maybe you could think less, but still, you don't go into a competition piece without knowing at least where you're going to go until you're half through. When you're half through the painting, then you can enter a phase that you haven't think through yet. But if before you're there, before you're half through, and you already don't know where you're going, then maybe you haven't thought about it enough.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yes, like
it's to add to this. Actually, it's the way a lot of the pros do it these days. I had a private coaching with Arnau Lazaro a few weeks back, and he literally told me this exact same approach that he does with all of his pieces. Like he is never touching a brush before he knows what model, what light source, what ambience, what colors he wants to use, what story the piece needs to tell. Once he's sorted all of those things out, that's actually when he starts picking up a brush. But he said, I'll never even like just slapping on some colors or whatever. I'll never do that before I know what I want to do with the model when I start. Yeah.
That's fascinating because that's a whole different dimension of planning before you even get into it. And
yes.
sometimes it can be something simple and fast.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have this model that looks very familiar to a certain character that I know from, I don't know, D&D or games or movies or whatever. And to get that reference is really fast. Like, for instance, the knight I'm currently working on comes from a video game, comes from Dark Souls 3. So my references are like one-on-one. So it's very easy to just like, cool, I want to have it look like that. Then it's just a scene of figuring out what kind of ambient do you want it, like where do you want to position it in. Well, the base my model is on gives that away quite well because it has lots of candles around it, so I know, cool, the rest will be a slightly more grimy, darky ambient. The candles will do some stuff with some OSL, some reflections. I'm good to go, basically. Other than a few color choices that I need to make, like what color does the cloth need to be and such, I'm good to go. More complex pieces where you don't have those references need more work. And that's where, like Julien also said, other websites come in, like use Pinterest, for instance, scour the internet. Like, okay, cool, I have this elf woman here. She's a ranger. Cool. Elf rangers. What kind of color combinations can I have? What kind of environment do I want to place her in? Even though it's a bust and you don't have a base or anything, don't think like I don't need to think about these things, because the ambient, the environment you place a model in influences the models all around. It influences the colors you're going to use, it influences the light source you're going to use, and all of that basically comes together when you're painting a competition piece.
Yes, and it can
Fantastic,
be simple. Like when I'm saying you have to think about a story, it doesn't have to be a long story. In fact, it's better if it's not, because that's still a mini, and you don't want to have a piece of paper with text next to it. That's not the point. But let's say most of the minis we're painting, there are warriors of some sort. Most of them. Well, a warrior can be in 3 states: before the battle, during the battle, or after the battle. And there are details on the piece that will tell you if it's before, after, or right in the middle. And that's it. That's a story. That's enough of a story. But then, once you've decided, well, this one is before a battle, this one is after, and this one is right in the middle of the battle, everything in your piece has got to tell that. The story is simple, but everything is thought around that. That's what I mean. So don't get overly complicated stories. Just get one simple one, and then go with it.
Okay. Well, that answers one of my questions.
Especially since you don't have any like moving parts or sound or whatever. It's basically a picture that are people looking at. So you have to tell a story from a picture. It's a 3D picture, but it's still just a single picture.
You have more dimensions to it in a way. Than
but keep the story simple. So I'm fully agreeing with what Julien says. Keep the story very simple. Make sure there is a story, but keep it as simple so that basically everyone that looks at this one particular picture of your model understands what you're trying to sell.
Yeah. So set it up to read like how you intended. It's got to come across to the audience with that theme, and that person go, oh shit, that looks exactly like this from this particular movie or this particular game. So
or doesn't, even if it's not referencing a movie or a game, just like tell a simple story. I, for instance, did a piece with 2 dinosaurs, Fatherhood from Black Sun, that are like running out of a burning forest. So I made a backdrop of a burning forest.
Yeah.
And they just like reach the edge of that, so they're now in safety. And so that is the basic story that it tells. Done. Once you start looking longer at the piece, you'll find out little details like, oh, the weapon of the father has like burn marks on it. There's some charcoal area, so he probably tried to do something. Oh, his hand is actually burned as well. You know, like those little details add to your story, but the base of the story is very simple. Like, cool, there's a burning fire, they're running out of the woods. Done.
Well, that leads us through to the next section as well, where I was going to bring in some of the pieces that you'd done and sort of discuss it in line with what we've just covered there. Because actually one of my questions was going to be about theming, and you guys have just naturally just gone through it all, which is brilliant. And I do have something in my head for the miniature that I've chosen, which I wanted to share with you guys. And the 2 that I've attempted so far, I'll start the ball rolling with this, is that bust. But the bust that I'd started from the Neko Warrior, I wanted that to be more through Twitch and organic and have everybody involved. And it's just kind of evolved from that. I didn't come into it with a plan. I was like, let's just paint and see what happens. And the community was like, oh, check out these reference pictures. A couple of people I like this one. And I settled on one. And then, the likes of yourself and Julien would be like, you need to make that more orange, or you should add more, for like the bow. And it's just gone, oh, right, okay, well, let's do that. And it's just started to evolve from there. And now I have a direction that I want to keep taking that model to. And I have a good idea now in my head of the theme and the theatre I want to show with it. But for the main piece that I want to do, I'll reveal to you guys it's going to be the Gandalf the White Nom Nom miniature.
Yeah.
I've 3D printed it. I started printed it in the full scale, and Matty's like, no, that's far too big, because it was like 300 millimeters.
It's almost that size. You don't want to enter that
It's
in a
like-
competition. That's like, no.
I was like, okay. So I ended up printing it again, and I only printed the horse. I only printed Shadowfax, to be fair. And then I have printed it now in 75mm scale, which is a much more easier to manage paint job. And I have been thinking about these things without, I haven't talked to either of you about theming or anything like that. And it's quite interesting that in my head, I've gone, I really want to set this from the second movie when he's going to be riding, he appears over the crest on the third day,
Of course. Yeah.
when the
scene at
lights on
Helm's
him,
Deep, yeah.
the Helm's Deep scene, that's in my head, like as he's cresting that hill. So I really want to play around with light, which I've never done before. I've got a lot of plans around that and playing with colours, because it's going to be white. Obviously, he's white, Shadowfax is white, but if I have it with the colours of the sun and some of the shadows in the foreground, I could quite come out with something that looks quite different and doesn't necessarily, it's not white, is it? You're looking at it's like orange and all sorts. So that's kind of what I'd thought of, and I'm really glad you guys have said that, because it makes me feel happier that I'm on the right track in a way.
Definitely are.
But I've not started painting. Like, it's all just been planning so far.
Yeah.
See, you are because you basically know where to go, and now you've got to think how to do that.
Yeah.
And if I were you,
I don't know.
I would be thinking, okay, so everything you just said, the movie, the scene, it's quite precise, and playing with light. And he's white. Gandalf is white. The hair, the clothes, the horse, everything's white. And white is a relative color. It basically takes up the color of everything. My wall is white. Your walls are white. Your door is white. And none of those whites are actually white. So you've got to play with that. And let's say you've got your Gandalf. And where is the stronger light? If it's in front of him, well, he's looking at the action. If it's in the back, well, he's got the sunrise in the back and he's on the crest, as you said. And that's already two different stories just by changing the light.
Yeah.
What you could do is to reference that scene, warm light in the back, because that's the sunrise, and cold light in the front, because it's still night and it's Helm's Deep. And if I recall correctly, it's at the bottom of some pit. So it's dark.
Big hill, yeah.
Yes, so it's dark. It's dark and it's got bluish cold light and warm light in the back, because that's the sun rising. And there you go. And you've got your story.
That's it.
And that's what I was talking about when telling a story. It can be as simple as that.
Yep.
That's got a lot.
You could even play around more depending on how far you want to go with it. Because if I remember correctly, when Gandalf rides down the hill, he also uses his staff to make more light to blind the Uruks when he's like riding into them.
Yes.
So you could have, like Julien said, that warm yellowy orangey sunlight in the back, a cold, almost like our painting light at the front, which also casts those bluish shadows everywhere else on Gandalf from the front. That can really work, yeah.
So
changing the direction of light is one of the most basic yet efficient ways of telling a story. You talked, Matt, is about an elf ranger. Let's say I've got an elf ranger where she's looking that direction and it's dark behind her. Then she's getting out of the forest looking in the sun. Now I change the light and it's light behind her, and in front of her it's dark. Then she's entering the forest and leaving the light. And that's it. And depending on the sculpture, does she look, I don't know, apprehensive? And then she'll be going into the dark? Or does she look decided? And then she will be going out of the dark into the light. And see, it can be as simple as that. And then you go from there.
Well, Matt, can I jump into some I've got another scene prepared, ready to
Yep.
jump into your first miniature that you shared here, which is the knights. So just quickly, and here we are. So we've got your piece here. If you go ahead and talk us through the theme, the theatre, and what was your thought process with putting this together?
I can't see which one you're talking about. The
Oh,
two
sorry,
knights?
the two knights. Yeah, the two knights.
Okay. Well, I have it there. I can change my camera.
Yes, you can. Yeah, it didn't break anything, so that's
Tell me.
good.
That's okay. People are still there.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't really see if the focus is good, so you'll have to tell me.
Good enough.
But these
Yeah.
are the knights.
They can see the picture on the,
here,
video.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it up on
here-
YouTube now for everybody.
The story was more or less already. Sorry, what?
I do have it up on YouTube for
What was that?
everybody as well.
Okay. Well, do you need me to keep showing it here? Because I can show
Well,
you
you
things
can-
like that.
But it's
You
easy
can
if
probably
you.
Yeah.
point out things which might make it easier, but then they can also see the picture for the high quality stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, cool. So here the story was basically already told because I didn't change, like the piece was already like that. The guy on the rock and the other looking in the direction he's pointing. So there, the work was already done. But what I wanted to do is emphasize that. So there obviously he's showing something and he's looking. And I said to myself, well, first the setting. The setting is they're from the Hastings period, you know. So I want to put them on a beach.
Okay.
So I added, so I didn't start from the base, of course, but from the start, I knew I was going to end by adding sand and algae on the base. The rock was there, the algae I added, and the brightness and the wetness and the wet sand. And that I knew from the start I was going to end with the base, but I was going to end like that. So I thought myself, I need to give them clothes where that sand and that wetness would show. So I gave them bright capes because I wanted that to show. On a dark cape, it wouldn't have shown. See, so that was a way of emphasizing the story that is already told by the mini and planning ahead what I'm planning to do next. So that's one thing. Then I looked and I saw, well, he's wearing that tabard. Is that the right word in English? The tabard.
The long cloth
piece.
on the front.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
And he doesn't have it.
Right.
And he doesn't have it. And that, plus the fact that he's showing and he's listening and he's wearing the flag, I thought, well, he's the boss. He's the boss and he's listening. So I gave him a more fancy outfit. See, the colors, they're brighter, and I gave the illusion that the fabric is of a better quality, less texture, and more shininess. Whereas
Yeah, you can see
he
that.
has more texture and less shininess. It's more rough. He's got a rough cloth. He's the chief, the captain, or whatever. So he's got a better cloth. And so that's another way of keeping up with the story. And then it was all a matter of matching the colors and always keeping these two elements in mind. So that was me basically telling a story that was half told already.
And did it kind of like evolve as you were painting it? Because you were talking about like the wetness of the beach. And did you start going and then go, oh, I actually want to add some sand. I want it, add a bit of grime and weathering.
That didn't evolve because that I thought from the start they're on a beach because they're at Hastings and they're looking at England and they're going to invade you basically. So So that didn't evolve, but things did evolve.
Yeah.
I wasn't set up first on the color. I started with the captain,
Okay.
and then I gave him. I did a bit of research, and because it's a historical piece, so I wanted colors that you have in the Bayeux tapestry. And so I noticed that this color, this kind of turquoise, is a noble color.
Yeah.
So I gave him that. And then I thought, well, what kind of cape could I give him that goes well with that? And then that kind of ochre yellow came in, and then I built from that. So that changed over time. Then I decided to give the second dude a colored helmet, and
Yeah.
that was just a decision that came up because, well, two metal helmets would have looked less good, I guess. And I looked up a bit, and I saw that being a grunt like he's supposed to be doesn't prevent you from having a colored helmet. That's not something fancy. So I said, okay, let's go with it. So these kind of things changed
That's really cool.
along the way.
That's a really stunning piece, and from what you've said to everybody there, you know, you can really tell that you've made the leader the focal point. Your eyes are sort of drawn to him when you look at him.
Yeah.
And I like that you've planned that and then it's come together like that, and but you've added more as you've gone and experimented with it a little bit. And
Yeah, I went with that because the sculpture made it obvious, and doing the opposite, doing him brighter and more visible, would have conflicted with the pose, and it would have been okay. Like, there's no wrong way of doing it, and I'm sure a good painter would have been able to do it. But I didn't want to have this conflict between my painting and the sculpture. I say, well, he's the boss. He's obviously the dude. He's on the rock. He's showing. The other is listening. Let's make him the centerpiece, and that's it.
yeah, that's awesome, man. So if you want to ask, we'll jump into one of yours, Matties.
Well, I think especially with a piece like this, because you also said, Julien, you entered this in this historical category. I think.
Sorry, what was that?
You entered that piece in a historical category.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're going history instead of the fantasy categories, for instance, there's also a big difference. Like Julien said, he looked up what colors did the royals use to just show like really that he's the boss and such. It's not that they will like criticize your model if you don't put it into, but judges, especially in the historical category, can take notes from incorrect historical pieces, basically. So I'm pretty sure, for instance, the freehands you did on both of those shields, you looked up references that are real, right?
Yeah, I forgot to add that, but yes.
So-
the colors were pretty free because it was a very colorful era, and apart from one or two colors that didn't exist back then, I was free. But yeah, the pattern, the drawing, I looked that up too.
Yeah.
But that's something else. That's because in historical, you have to be, well, historical.
I didn't even think about that, but
Yeah.
So they have different
Yep.
different judges for each category, right?
Yes. So I know someone, for instance, who judged the historical master category last year at SMC, who actually started out as a historical painter and then transitioned way more into the fantasy side. It's actually Lucas Zaba. So he was, because he told me afterward they did the judging, he was really struggling a lot with the other two judges that were in his team. So there's a team of 3 basically for each category. And the other 2 were basically the old folks that have been judged historical for like years. And his way, especially because of his style and his experience in fantasy and such, really clashed with their way of judging historical, because they've obviously been doing this like this for the last 20 years and nothing really changed in that category. Whereas in the fantasy category, there's newer techniques, newer effects, crazy new stuff that people are trying out because it's fantasy, you're free. And Zaba wanted to reward that in historical as well a tiny bit, whereas they went like, no, but that's not historical accurate. So you're actually getting minus points for that. So they kind of clashed because of that. But that's so for I would not want to judge a competition like this if we're going like
No.
that way as well.
That's
Knowing the
something,
history of each thing is very difficult to determine.
Even fantasy, I would not like to judge it. Like the competition is so hard.
Yes,
It is so impossible to like come up with, okay, this is worth bronze, this is worth silver, that's just worth recommended. Yeah.
I've talked with Lucas Abba at Monte, and he told me the exact same thing.
Sorry, we lost you there a bit, mate.
Yeah,
Can you
you're
repeat
cutting
that?
out of it.
We may have lost him.
Uh-oh.
Wait.
Mm.
Well, we'll give him a second. I'm going to jump into one of yours in a second, Matties.
Yeah, sure.
But we just have a quick question from the chat, just saying how much time goes into the research before painting something like that.
Ooh, that is a really a difficult one because it really depends on the piece that you're working on. Like we said, for instance, with your Gandalf the White that you want to paint for SMC or other competitions, you can be done real quick because the reference is obviously there. There's the Lord of the Rings movies. You know what the scene is. You know what colors are in there. You know, okay, I want to paint him like that. So you can literally be done with that in, I don't know, a couple of minutes if you really wanted to. The model
out. I'm back.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there he is. Yeah,
there he is. So
okay, sorry.
The model I did, for instance, during the workshop with Arnau, we spent I think 15 to 20 minutes researching some stuff, but I already had a rough idea of what I wanted with the model, so it was just fine tuning. But sometimes, if you like really want to dig deep into, okay, what do I want for ambience, for colors, for setting, for posing, for light, it can take quite a while. It can really just like take up a day looking up everything, looking up all the right references. Finding the right references can also be a big struggle, of course, because there's so much out there, and finding something that's like, oh, I like this colors. It has nothing to do with the actual pose or setting that my model is in, but I like the color composition of this piece, so I'm taking that, putting that to the side just to like remember it. And then, okay, cool. Now I need to find something that has roughly the same pose, so I can look for different light intervals. Oh, I like that one. Cool. Add that as well. To like, you're basically making like a storyboard or like an inspirational board for yourself, with just all these different combinations, and then from there you're trying to melt that onto a 3D model.
It sounds very organized. That does, yeah. So sorry, Julian. Before we lost you, we just had a little question from chat, which is saying how much time goes into researching. Painting something like that, like the piece that you've just done from the historic there. And Matties has just put in his 2 cents on that. So a fair bit of time, essentially. But like if you already have a good theme, then you can speed that up significantly.
Yeah, a fair bit of time. But again, on this one, it was shorter because something were already all set up for me. These are the fact that they're Hastings Knights. That's the mini, that's the way they're sculpted, that's what they're wearing. So that is all set up, and I just have to look into Hastings and that period of time. And there's plenty of documentation. So that was quite quick. The research time can be longer if you're painting a period with, paradoxically, with less freedom in color.
Right.
Because Hastings, again, early medieval times, they were wearing basically all sorts of color. Whereas
Victorian era or something.
Yes, whereas when you're painting, I don't know, Napoleonic Wars.
Oh, yeah.
That's very coded. You don't have a big margin, and yet you still want to have your colors and the pieces go well together. The light, the light, the color of the trousers, the color of the base. And yet, your trousers, they're going to be red because that's just the way it is. So paradoxically, then the research goes for way longer because you're going to look into how, with that red that I'm forced to paint, can I make it look good with what light and what's background and what's everything. And with fantasy, that's the longest research time, because it's fantasy. You can do whatever.
Yeah.
So,
sky's the limit.
So yeah, with fantasy, the research time can be basically infinite, so you have to narrow it down. you have to narrow it down by what I said before, even before researching, is thinking what you want to do. Like there's other pieces you've asked me to send you the pictures, and if we talk about that, for instance, the lady, the basically naked lady with green skin, greenish turquoise skin.
There she
I
is.
knew I wanted turquoise skin, and I knew I wanted the flames to be pinkish violet. That I knew from start. And then I started doing some research. What pink, what turquoise, how to do that, how does turquoise light interact with, how does pink light, interact with turquoise skin. But before that, I just decided I wanted turquoise skin and pinkish light, because if I have to research that as well, it's fantasy. I can do basically whatever I want. So that's why I told you before, the very first thing you want is, what mini do I want to paint now?
Yeah.
That is going to narrow down the research time.
So this fantasy mini here, you've literally jumped into it. Your concept, your theme, you're like, I want to do turquoise with pink before you started painting it. Yes. And you had to research how those colours interacted.
Yeah. Do you want me to show it, or can people see it now?
I've pulled it up on YouTube for you as you're talking, because it's come
Great.
up.
Great. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you why I want a turquoise skin. I think I like painting that color. It's not quite the same as the clothing from the night from before, but it's still turquoise. I like that. And then I did a few testings with lights, actual LED lights,
right,
on my painting pots, just to see that.
Interesting.
That was the reason. Yeah, I'm a bit of a nerd, and I've started my career as an illustrator. Before being a painter, I was an illustrator, and so that's the same thing you do when you're an illustrator.
Okay.
So research went into that, and then how strong I want the light to be, because that's also something you want to think about. It's a flame, but when you see someone walking around with a flame, like the Olympic torch, and they're walking with that in broad daylight, they've got basically no light on them, because the daylight is way stronger. And then the darker it gets around them, the stronger the fire light is going to be. You've got to decide that as well. How strong do you want it to be? And so I thought, I don't want it to be 50-50, because that's just boring, 50-50. So I had to go with that. And then she got that cape, so the light would go under the cape and light it from behind. So these are the research I did, and I did mock-ups on Photoshops, just mock-ups to test it. And then I started painting, and I asked for advice also along the way from painters I knew.
That's fascinating that you used digital technology to sketch this out first.
Oh yeah, you can do that.
I thought that was brilliant, and I'm going to try that, because like I've got like turquoise paint pot, and then shining the LED on it. I've never even thought of that. That's a fantastic little idea.
Yeah, you can try that. You can take pictures of your minis and then do Photoshop mock-ups. It doesn't have to be clean. It can actually be quite dirty. You just want to smash not fictional, fake paint. Like it's not paint, it's on Photoshop. I forgot the word. So you've got to do as if you're painting, but it's on Photoshop, so you can correct that quite quickly.
Well, I'm going to jump us ahead, because I'm aware of the time a little bit.
Yeah, I'm talking too much.
No, don't worry about it, mate. We're having a great. We're all learning here.
That's the problem if you get like three nerds in a room with the same passion, and you let them talk about their passions.
Like,
There's
so much.
It's going to end at 4:00 in the morning. I'm just warning you all on YouTube how it's going to be.
Well, I mean, you guys have all sent me quite. I've got 3 pictures off Julien, and about 6 pictures off you there, Matties. Matties, pick one and let's go into it, because we've got a little bit of a segment at the end to cover as well.
Oh, you're asking me to pick one of those.
Which one do you want to have a little chat about?
So if we're going into story, I think I'll pick Donko. I'll pick the turtle. It's
The
not the best
turtle.
picture, but it's a terrible model to take a picture of because it's a very long.
I'm looking at my phone, but it's because I'm checking the mini you're talking about.
Yeah, I put it up on YouTube now, so you should all be able to see it.
I can send you the picture otherwise as well if you like,
Yeah.
Julian. So you can check it out in Discord.
I can do a super zoom of Doom as well if you want.
You can if you want. With that model, I honestly don't mind.
I've just done a super zoom and it looks fantastic either way, mate. It looks so cool.
Yeah, so with that one, the standard model is obviously it's the turtle with the scythe on its shoulder, just standing somewhere. And the box art that Zaba did says he is the guardian of the forest.
Okay.
But I was like, a turtle forest? Yeah. So I wanted to add a story about how he is the guardian of the ocean. That's why he's standing on a little pier. That's why there's water underneath, looking out over the ocean. And you can't see it on the picture as well. But if you, for instance, zoom of Doom on the base,
okay, yeah,
you will see that there is. I added lots of like trash cans, trash bags, dirty pots and pans that are rusted away.
Yeah.
Cans, bottles, there's all kinds of trash basically littered in the sea. So he is trying to protect what we as humans are currently ruining, basically. And if you zoom in on his face again,
sorry,
most people might see or might know the little video that was on the internet with the turtle with the straw. I sculpted a tiny little straw coming out of his nose as well, because yeah, he's obviously been hit by the pollution that we created as well, so he's now trying to protect his home.
The whole debacle about the straw.
That's basically the story that I wanted to add with this model.
I didn't even notice the straw, mate. I'll be honest. I've seen you
don't
do
really
this
see
a
it
few
on the picture.
times.
If you look sideways, it sticks out actually quite a bit. But,
does it? This is really cool. I didn't even notice that little. Like, there's a little Easter egg there.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's what I meant with like the general story. Like, okay, there's a turtle. It's looking out over the ocean. Guardian of the ocean. Pretty simple. And then you add more to your story with those little bits, with your base, with your light, with whatever you want to do. You just add more to your story.
So, and those things have evolved over the course of the painting as well.
Those little things, like, so I knew I wanted to have the base like this. I knew I wanted to add all the trash to it. Things like the straw were added during the painting process.
Okay.
When I was literally like, cool, what can I add more to the story? And then I was like, wait, there was this video about the turtle. Let me add that as well to it. So those are the little things that I added during the painting process. Yes.
Awesome. There you go, guys. We've got a nice little theme here. You've both shown your pre-planning, your research steps, and all of that. And I hope you've all learned something, because I certainly have, about this today. So that's really, really cool. Is there anything more you want to say on this piece before we jump? Anything particularly that you struggled with that you may have had to change?
Mostly on the back, which you don't see, because there's like this big shield that he has, which I really struggle with. Like, what am I going to do with it? Because obviously it is in the backside of the model, so it's the less interesting part of it. But it's almost the whole back is the shield of the turtle. And so I was like thinking, cool, what can I do with it? I can't just give it like one color and weather it down or anything. You need to go with what I did on the front as well, with some sort of a pattern to make it a bit more interesting. But getting that one like down the way I tried to was that was a bit of a struggle. Other than that, I actually really, really enjoyed working on this piece. Was a lot of fun. Learned a lot from it as well. Again, looked up lots of references. Looked up the original box art from Zaba, of course. That helped quite a lot because of like light sourcing. It's roughly the same position. Which, if you're like trying to improve your painting, I'd say it's a good way to first try to copy someone else's work, because you can just learn from, okay, so how did they achieve what I can see from here? And then from there on, once you've tried that and you understood how it works, you can basically like go your own way and try your own stuff with it.
Okay. That's awesome, guys. I'm going to jump back into the previous screen that we just had for the little chatteroo. So, yeah, I feel a lot more ready to start my piece now, but I am going to be juggling a couple of pieces at the same time. And this is the other thing I just wanted to round everything out with you guys, because I'm sure you're all in a similar boat to me where, you know, you might have a commission piece on, you might also have a couple of other projects, like, for example, I've got my Tomb Kings as an army project to work on that I'm trying to chip away at when I can. And then finding the time to then jump in and do a display piece. I do feel like I'm overwhelming myself and not giving myself the enough time to what's that, give the space to create that display piece. Have you guys got any advice you'd like to give on how to give yourself that time to do the display piece?
Plan ahead.
Yeah.
First, I'm going to be nitpicky, but I just saw on YouTube it's men plural in my name. It's
sorry,
Dueling
mate.
Brushmen plural. That's one thing.
I can change that right now.
Yeah, it's plan ahead. You know, and it's a piece of advice that I've got trouble following myself, but I know I should. When you've got plenty of time and no time limit, you tend to just not work on it because you've got no time limit, right? So it's okay if you do it later. When you've got a time limit, you can't do that. So set yourself a time limit, but a comfortable one. Don't rush yourself because then it's counterproductive. You've stressed yourself out. But put yourself a time limit, and that time limit will be, well, I know what competition I want to enter. So obviously it's got to be done before that. And then you're forced to work and to give yourself space. So give yourself that time limit, make it so that you know you can do it. Don't set yourself an unreachable goal because that's just stupid, and don't rush yourself. But put yourself that time limit. Don't say, well, I'll paint it whenever, and then when it's done, I'll enter it into a competition, because then you'll never do it.
Yeah.
And even if it's a long time limit, even if it's next year, see, I'm already planning ahead for the World Battle Expo in 2025. That's a long time limit. It's more than a year from now because it's in July 2025. But it's still a time limit. So now I know I've got time, but I don't got infinite time, and I'm going to be forced to start some moment or another.
Not a month beforehand.
No.
Because like we've got till October for this challenge, and I've not started it yet. And I need to start it.
You still have 7 months, so
Yeah.
that's really not the issue. But yeah, don't start too late, especially if you don't know how fast you can paint the models. It's like you want to push yourself to your limits. It's your first competition, so you don't have the experience yet of knowing, like, okay, so this piece for a competition standard for me will roughly take me, let's say, 100 hours. You don't know that yet. And depending on the model you're choosing, it can also, of course, differ again. But once you started doing this a couple of times more and you like get the experience, you can roughly say, like, okay, cool, this model, these and these are my ideas for it. Cool, I want to add this and this to it. Okay, it should roughly take me between, let's say, 100 and 150 hours. Then you can start like planning that time for you. And obviously we have the deadline, like Julien said.
Yeah.
For you as a streamer, and obviously since you're also a commission painter and you have your Tomb Kings army, like you said, so you can't just say like, cool, the next 7 months till SMC competition pieces, because that would be no income at the same time, which is not possible.
Yeah.
So try to find in your streaming schedule, because that's what I did in the past. It really helped me when I had like a commission and I wanted also to work on my Seraphon army, but I also wanted to work on my competition pieces. Try to find a slot in your schedule. It doesn't even have to be like a full stream, but I'd say at least find a 2-hour slot and just reserve that for your competition every week.
Okay.
So from there, and you can just like say, cool, it's your Wednesday stream, for instance. You paint for the first 2 hours on your Tomb Kings or on a commission or whatever. You have a look at the Discord of what everyone's sending in. Cool, we've done that part now. It's now competition time. So from now on to the rest of my stream, I'm going to work. I'm going to crack my hat on this Gandalf that's in front of me.
That's a great idea, man. Like, I'll definitely try and do that and implement that.
Set yourself goals too, like sort of checkpoints.
Yeah.
I need to finish the face, maybe the thing you're more comfortable with first. The face, knowing that you could still go back to it, because since it's a competition piece, and if you paint the face and then you keep painting the rest, and then something is kind of off with the light on the face, so you can still go back to it. So finishing the face doesn't mean you won't touch it ever again, but still, it's sort of finish. And set yourself goals and say, I need to finish the face in 2 weeks, because I know after that I will have more time to paint another area that is way bigger and more difficult than the face. And so at every checkpoint, then you ask for advice, because advice is great and you need it. And as you say, Maddie, you're going to be staring at the same piece for hours, and then at the end you don't see it. So you need advice, but also you don't need too much of it, because everyone you ask, they are gonna have something to say on your piece. And then if you ask 100 persons, and when you're streaming, asking lots of persons can go real quick. So you'll ask 100 persons and you will get 100 pieces of advice, and then you just get confused. Some advices are better than the other, but even if the hundreds advice, they're all good advice, you cannot just all fit them all, because at the end you're gonna decide what advice you follow, what advice you don't, because every one of these 100 people, they would have done a bit differently. And then you're just confused. So ask advice to a limited set of person that you trust and want their advice, and ask that when you reach these checkpoints I talked about, because there's no need to ask for advice at every point in your minis, because then what I told you yesterday, that's still true today. Not much I can add. But if you finish that phase, then I will have something else to say.
So not after every single session of painting, but after you've done these milestones, like you say.
Exactly.
Yeah, milestones.
Because then people can have a proper look and give you proper feedback of what their opinion is. Because sometimes, if you show me a whip of your face, a work in progress picture, I'm like, cool, but I don't know what you still want to add and what you want to change and what you're happy with and what's done. So I can't really say much unless, keep on going and show me once it's done. Because once you say, cool, I'm happy with the face how it is, what do you think? Then we can start, looking at it, analyzing it, cool. Maybe add a bit more shadow there. Maybe add more light reflections on this part. Look at the anatomy of a face more because of this and this. Then you can be the nitpicky person and find the pieces that you can still add to. And like Julien said, at the end, once the rest of your model is done, you could probably have to go back to those parts again to just fine tune it again, because there's there's always small parts that change a bit or that are more clear once you've painted the other parts. I'm fully agreeing with have a few select people that you trust, maybe even people that you try to that their style is close to yours.
Okay,
that can also very much help, because if you ask someone whose style, let's say for instance, look at how Craft Worlds are painting their models, nothing is very smoothly blended, it's lots of weird colors added to the shadows and the highlights. It's an amazing style, but it's absolutely not my style. So if I would ask them for feedback and they would give me what they would do, it would not fit into how I want to paint my models.
Throw you off big time. I literally just saw one of their latest posts before, and I was just like, it's amazing, but it's so
absolutely
different.
Stunning, but it's not my style. So their feedback would probably not be as good for me as when I would, for instance, ask Julien for feedback.
You both have an interesting style as well. So, Julien, when I've seen some of your stuff recently, I'm seeing more of the lighting and more volumes with the light being played on it. And when I look at Matty's stuff, I'm seeing a little bit more like realism in there, and it's an interesting blend to see both of your paint jobs as well. But both of you, you know, I can see with Matty's is really trying to do the lighting, particularly if we take that turtle example there on the skin. You can see the lighting. You've fixed the points, the weapon on the chest, you know, smoothing it out. So you can see how you've learned as well and taken your feedback on. So all awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I think, look, I've definitely learned quite a bit from tonight. And I hope everybody who's watching now and in the future, because this is all up on YouTube as well, it'll stay there on YouTube. And obviously comment with anything, any questions you would like to ask, because we can pass them on to Julien and to Matties. I would like to say that, you know, this podcast, just the idea of it and thinking about it is going to really help push myself towards SMC, and I hope that it inspires other people to try it as well and try something. And this is going to be one of my main checkpoints, right? Because it's going to be, I want to have something done every month to then like either show you guys or talk about as well with everybody and say, look, this is what I've tried, this is what I've learned, and I'll mention it because I don't have an example to show you guys. Like MiniMatties has got a couple of examples. Yeah, I've got examples of work I've done, but I've got no examples of competition pieces done like you guys have. So I think I'll focus on that aspect.
I mean, we could even take it a step further now at the end of the episode, I'd say. So right now your model's printed, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can show you that.
So what will you do before the next podcast episode?
So
he's gonna set you up.
Yeah.
Set a challenge. So what I'd like to do is
do it like this every month. You will make time.
I'll make time. I think what I want to do is sketch it. I want to start sketching the light because, as we were talking about earlier, the lighting is the main thing I want to play with. So I'm trying to visualize how I'm going to piece it together. I'm not the kind of painter that goes, I'm going to paint a sword until the sword's done. I do tend to jump around the mini quite a bit as I'm going. I hate batch painting. I really hate batch painting. Like army painting is for me, and I dropped that, you know. So with this piece, I think, and this is going to be a topic on the next podcast as well, which is going to be talking about classes and the things we've learned and a few things like this. Because I've attended a class. I know that Matties has attended a class recently as well. And you also get private tutorials and how that can benefit you. But one of the things I learned, which I'll just cover now, is like sketching. And it's something that I never really approached. So I'm going to try and do the sketching on the Gandalf to show where I want my lighting. Maybe start plugging in those colours and show the cold and the warmth. Because essentially there's going to be 3 light sources, but the third one is kind of the reflection of the nighttime coming back up. So I'm going to struggle with that one the most, but I want to try and get that visualized and maybe get a picture for you guys to have a look at as well. So that'll be awesome. But yeah, just to wrap up, is there anything you guys want to say to everybody?
I maybe have one little thing for Julien before we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
You have any idea for your current competition piece? Are you working on anything right now?
Oh, yeah. I've got a Space Marine bust I want to do. And I know I've set myself a goal of making, at least for the World Model Expo, at least 3 pieces, one being a bust, one being like a single mini, and one being a unit. So I've got a bust.
Unit, wow.
Yeah, I've got a bust. I've got 2 units. I'm not sure which one I want to do. One is the old Daemonette from Juan Diaz. Juan Diaz had sculpted Daemonette's metal for Games Workshop a while back ago. either that or something from that's from the works of Jean-Baptiste Monge, small like goblin leprechaun type creatures. So either that or that for the unit. And single mini, I'm still thinking about it. But the boss will be the first one I want to do, yeah.
So you're already planning to do multiple categories. That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's that's something else that comes with the experience of competition.
Yeah.
You know what you like, what you don't like, what you like but don't do enough of. And that's busts. I like busts. I don't do enough of them simply because they're taking up the most time. And I want to do more of them. So I force myself to do that first.
Interesting.
I'm literally in the same boat. Like I have 2 pieces here, which is the elf bust that I talked about earlier and the knight. Could actually like quickly just like this is the elf bust. If the face cam just gets it right, might need to zoom out a tiny bit there for So this is one of the busts that I want to do for SMC. And then there's obviously the knight that we've all seen a few times by now.
Spinning the whips, yeah.
Yeah, it's spinning the whips
We love
many
it.
times over. It's getting there. So those will be 2 of my entries, and then I'll probably want to do something small scale as well, just to also like just enter a different category and see how I'm doing in there.
That's awesome. Thank you for reminding me about that, because we were meant to be asking what's your current project, and it's just completely gone on my head because I was like the time limit.
Yeah.
I was like, trying to fit everything into an hour is an ask. It's a big ask.
It is.
So that's awesome, guys. Like, I look forward to seeing what you're up to as well, Julien, with your current projects. I'm sure you'll release some whips to us at some point in the future.
I will, on my
which would be
Instagram.
awesome.
Follow
Yes.
me.
Of course, guys. Yeah. So I'm going to put everything in the description. So just a big thank you to you both, and Dueling Brushmen for being technically our first guest as well. I know this is the first podcast with Matties on, but I'm hoping Matties can be regular with us.
We'll try to.
And thank you so much for being our first guest today, Julien.
Very glad to be, whenever you want, mate.
Awesome, man. We'll definitely have you on again for a follow-up down the line and see where you've got up to.
Of course, see, that's a milestone. That's good, because you're setting up for yourself and for me too. So that's good.
Next time we want to see progress, yeah.
Some progress.
Okay.
And of course, guys, every Wednesday we do a Whip Wednesday stream, and it's all about just showing what you've been working on. So if anybody in the chat on either Twitch or YouTube, whatever, wants to join us on that, there's links to the Discord, both on Twitch and in YouTube. It's not a space where we critique anything. It's more get it there. We all love having a look at it and just trying to encourage everybody to keep on painting, really. That's the main thing. Let's just keep on working and growing as painters together. Just make us all awesome. And Syncmaster just had great insights. Thanks, Julien and Matties as well. So there's been a couple of people in chat there that have both learnt something from you two. So appreciate it.
Very glad to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. All right, guys. We'll catch you. Hopefully, we're going to do this once a month. If we do get a cheeky extra bonus one in, great. But aiming for one a month is a good shout. So hopefully catch you guys.